Hello and good morning. Alrighty, so this time, what's changed? Well, basically gave this guy another skill slot. Nothing's changed with well, Voltaire's the only real change. Made him into a berserker. That'll make more sense later. So basically I just want somebody as a berserker, and I really only need one knight. I typically like to keep only one of them around. Sometimes two, depending on the circumstances, but either way, I'm going to keep him around as, Axe Knight. I'm going to keep him as a Berserker, just because it kind of looks cool to have him like this, since he stays looking like a knight. Moving on. Actually, interesting thing, Berserkers, just in general, they weren't, it's kind of a weird thing as far as how that term came to mean what it means today, but it basically was just a mistranslation over time of a champion. Like, over time, they, kings and dukes and whatever else, they would have somebody that would need to, go fight for them in a tournament or something like that, and their champion was basically, over the course of several translations or whatever, but originally it was the Berserker. That was their guy. That was like their designated, just guy they sent out, their grunt that they went out to go fight for their honor and whatever else. It was just kind of a cool thing. But yeah, so over time that somehow got translated to psychopath. It hits things, but I guess in a lot of cases they would have probably picked, the most brutish person they could to really hit the hell out of stuff. So maybe that's how it came to be. But they weren't, crazy people that hung out in the wild or whatever else. They were usually like a knight that was picked to go fight for them. They're chosen soldier, more or less. Alright, so, on to politics. So we go over here. Man, it must suck to wear all that armor in the sun all day. Although apparently stuff was colder back then. Okay, so he's kind of a cool title that he's got here. Also definitely Italian. I don't know how esteemed he is, he just got pulled out of a hole, but whatever. So they announce their arrival, get all official about this. Yeah, it is a cool looking castle. The nice thing is, even though they mention the whole, oh, it's impregnable, you'll never take it kind of thing, the walls never matter. That's just mostly a strategy game thing in general. Because by and large, even if they won the fight outside or whatever else, who's going and opening the gate? I mean, I guess it's kind of assumed you have Canopus or somebody else to be able to, go in there and take it. But it would have been cool if they added some mechanic around that. Would have been really annoying to set up, sure, but still. Oh no, the big bad guy is here. Hi, last boss. Slash big boss. And so they agree. For the moment. Which is kind of the thing, though. I mean, by and large, it doesn't make sense for them to overstretch past where they already are. I mean, they've only got so many people. So they can't really take over the whole place yet, even though that's their goal eventually. They have too many internal problems to actually invade, and that's the only reason their whole plan falls apart. But, yeah, so he's kind of pissed off at the Bakram. Because they're basically just there as bouncers for them. And they're apparently time travelers, but we don't know that yet. Yeah, you totally did. You kinda killed older people. I know this is like a Chaos Frame thing. I just go for this one. Seriously, it's not the place. Like, they don't really... Okay, they know this guy as, like, a psychopathic murderer guy, right? They deliberately went and said, hey, you know, we're gonna try to shank this guy just a few fights ago. And yeah, the whole thing of saying, no, we're totally enemies, while you're in their castle, surrounded by their guys, essentially asking for stuff from them. I mean, really, what the hell? What possible, you know, delusional thing would this be, to go for that? Like, no. You don't start that crap right there. Sure you did. So, this is one of the things that, I don't know, I really like, but I also kind of dislike about the DLC storyline. Is basically, up until the DLC storyline, this actually is, for all intents and purposes, possibly true. Like, that they just went in, it was a whole mistake and whatever else, and I think I kind of preferred that version. But then the DLC storyline comes out, you know, like, he's apologizing and everything else, he was the protagonist of the last one. Leonard gets all awkward. But I don't know. I guess it felt more appropriate for the character, because I kept wanting him to be the good guy secretly in the background. But, yeah, no, that got completely thrown out the window with the DLC. Like, no, he totally knew. And sent everyone. That's another thing. Original version, it was basically, you know, a few people show up. DLC version, they basically show up with all the commanders there. You know. I don't know. I think I prefer the original version. Yay, you plucked his eyes out, a-hole. Okay, so I guess Hobram was their Kashua, more or less. Which kind of... it's really kind of an insult. Maybe he was having hissy fits all the time or something. Oh well. So, a couple things. The store update will happen with the next cutscene. I thought... okay, never mind. Actually, no, wait. This already happened. I am doing a dumb. Has not happened yet. But I do want to have a fight in Golborza real quick. Just to kind of show it off. Because the encounters here are a little bit different. I would say they're a little bit more difficult than Tynemouth in terms of placement, but in terms of one-on-one fights, a bit easier. And also recruit some different units by this point. But I want to get a couple of these guys some levels. Specifically these two. We're going to hang out back here. We have one too many. I'm gonna take out Rosia. Yeah, this is fine. So this one fight should more or less catch them up on levels, should get them to 3 or 4. So now this one tends to have more archers, but tends to have less healers. So we'll see how that goes, since we have plenty of those. Big old pile of healers. So first things first, gonna go attack here. Can probably get away with here. So take out that archer, circle around, take out their berserker over there, and then kind of keep the healers keeping these at bay. Maybe just sponging their attacks. Sounds like an idea. I really like the movement range on the Beastmasters. Like, they move a good ways, they're pretty decently agile to get a good light weapon selection, and the whole animal buffs thing. That's why I decided to make Denim into one. He can get away from places, he can buff units, you know, he's got a purpose in the back, without him being a caster or healer or whatever. Alright, so got these first. 23, that's a 58, that is definitely the better choice. So it's weird. Just, wow. That is just plain unfortunate. I just finished doing a whole bunch of, Phantasy Star stuff. Making a crappy joke yesterday, actually, about, like, it would be pretty cool to have a tank for all these random encounters. Like, roll in here, it's like, oh, gravity bomb, and they're all gone, thanks for loot. But, not gonna happen. I was saying that, technology probably isn't progressing fast enough here. So, oh well, I guess that's a fair point. But yeah, no, completely wouldn't work here, but just finished a crap ton of parts on that. Gotta say, completely taken me by surprise every single time I start that thing up. Because from the previous ones of that series, from anything else, like, it always struck me as the most generic-looking thing in the world, and then, you know, put more and more time into it because I was suggested that it was amazing. And sure enough, it was amazing. And, really taken aback by it. Alright, so, quick thing that you may notice here. The level 1s are completely capable of taking on everybody else. So, while their health and some minor stat things go up, by and large, the levels do not matter even remotely as much as they do in base game. Alright, let's come over here for a sec, smack this guy down. I forgot to give you your equipment. Well, crap. That is a bit of a downer. That explains why she's taking so much damage. But yeah, so lower levels can easily fight with higher ones. It's not really that much of a factor anymore. We're gonna look more into, you know, just how much those end up scaling and whatever else later on. But for now, I think we're gonna have to throw away that plan of attacking that archer over there. Probably gonna send Voltaire and Denim over there. Let's box in this caster. Have everybody else fighting these friggin' birds. It took too long because there were too many misses. Alright, one of the things I like by this mod, you may notice all the hit rates are lower. Now, the immediate thought might be, you know, oh, accuracy sucks, it's, you know, it's frustrating, and I disagree. Because it depends entirely on the context. So in this case, where you basically wind up with a situation where you have to pay a lot of attention to people's placements and whatever else, it changes the game entirely. It makes it to where your front lines and everything else, your back lines, your flanks, all of that actually matter. Base game, there was a very good chance that if you had a high enough evasion on a unit, who gave the slightest crap, you know? It just did not matter. That they could just evade from any direction and everything else, and in this case, everybody can. You know, True Strike is gone, so there's generally going to be a lot more missing. A lot of those misses are just kind of implied to be armor doing its job. And namely, you know, if somebody took a hit, you know, they might not even necessarily feel it, depending on what they're wearing. Especially once plate stuff came into being. And I know I constantly rambled on about this last time too, but there's a kind of a general misconception in a lot of cases where when it comes to armor and something else, is like, no, you know, you still feel the entire thing, but look at it this way. You're sitting in your car, right? And you run over a log. Or let's just say you bump a traffic cone. You're not going to feel that. You end up going and bumping... Let's say, you know, you hit one of those parking pole things. You're gonna feel it slightly, but you're not necessarily gonna, feel like you just got smacked in the face by a pole. And in some of those cases, you have to consider, let's say it's a hammer or something hitting it against a plate. They'll feel the force of it. They may feel the weight of it, but they won't necessarily feel the brunt of it, because it's essentially plate with mail underneath it, and then you got gambeson underneath it, which honestly is very equivalent to if you've ever worn like a really heavy winter jacket. It's basically like that. And if you've ever walked around in one of those things and thought, wow, I feel really safe in this thing, actually. Like, for example, I do properties for a living, essentially buying and selling cheap houses and whatever else. So, years ago, I used to do a lot more going through houses in Detroit and whatnot. And there was a very real thing that somebody, let's say, going through a bit of a drug phase or whatever else, would be in that house, or somebody might be squatting there, or whatever else, who knew the situation. And, well, you needed to have something on you in case something happened, or, let's assume on a lighter note, maybe a piece of debris hit you or something else, and that happened every now and then. Would essentially break through some boards or something, or some stairs would crack, or just some random piece of furniture would hit you, and you needed something to take the hit. So usually I had like a heavy leather coat with some extra padding on it, and that did the job very well. So if that was perfectly fine for hitting, getting hit with stuff, adding more on top of that, I could see that feeling very, very safe. But yeah. It was, interesting but stressful is how I'd put that. Kind of a reason I stopped going most of the time. In general, gotta say, properties and whatever else, it's something that's, it's either really nice or really bad. There's no real in-between norm there. Like, to juxtapose 2 years there. 2 years ago, like maybe even beginning of last year, fantastic. I could basically go and pick up a bunch of stuff for near nothing. Like, we're talking situations of you go and you buy a rundown house for like $300. It was ridiculous, and then could basically go and sell it for $2,000. Amazing. So it pretty much took no effort. Everything was pretty much, everyone had really low expectations, so there wasn't a whole lot of worry about a lot of things, and it was very nice. Fast forward to today, for example, everything started getting a bit better there. Less people kind of coming in from other places to try and do risky fixes on houses, because most of the people that were coming in were coming from other countries or whatever else. It's like, okay, I have 2,000 or whatever, just looking for literally anything, like back taxes, liens, completely run down, on fire, whatever. It's, risky, but they'll try it. Somebody essentially coming in and saying, I'm gonna do it myself, I'm gonna take care of all this stuff just completely on my own, maybe even live in the thing while fixing it, and it's not for everyone, that's for sure, but you got to see a lot of interesting stuff come out of that. I mean, hell, I even saw one guy. I'm sorry for hitting the mic there. I saw one guy that did something. I still don't understand how he did it either. But this guy comes in and apparently moves an entire like 3-story rundown house because he really liked the architecture of the place, but it was well beyond fixing. And he just sort of comes in and apparently has some sort of way to pretty much dig it up from the foundations and move it somewhere else. Like, I can't imagine that this is even like slightly more practical than just rebuilding something completely new, but people had all sorts of ideas for it, so more power to them, I guess. What can I say? It was an interesting place. Really, that was my main shtick for sticking around. I've never been terribly good at dealing with houses or whatever else, but the kinds of stories that you would end up seeing from a place like Detroit, especially during its worst days, really kind of give you a different perspective on stuff, you know? Like, you go to a place where somebody's essentially living in half of a house, where somebody ran a truck, apparently, through half of the place. Middle of winter, no electricity, and they're making it work. You know, takes all kinds, I guess. So, anyway. Tangent aside, I'm sure I had some point to tell this story, but stuff's changed there. You know, it became more difficult. Honestly, I'm probably just gonna end up doing something else because, well, it's changed. Definitely changed. Because for some reason, people's expectations got very, very high on those things. Hell, actually, lots of expectations, low profit, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, for example, one not that long ago. Like, if you get a thing, like, if you get a house for $400 or something, or no, what was it? I think it was like 700 or so, right? Your expectations would be kind of low, right? Not, you know, going and angrily calling and yelling and screaming over the phone, like, oh, this is not what I expected. It needed to be able to pass code and whatever else. Dude, you paid less than my rent for this frickin' house, and you're yelling about it not passing code. You know? What do you want? This is not even my rent, most rent. Less than most rent for this thing. And that became more and more common, so who knows. I guess there must have been more news stories about stuff being amazing or something. And, you know, you'd see that every now and then. You know, somebody comes out and says, hey, you know, somebody over here did some sort of thing, therefore everybody must be doing it now. So, for example, there was a story a while ago on title issues. And then suddenly, for like 3 months, every person comes up like, no, I need to do a full title search and everything else. It's like, title search costs 3 times more than they're actually paying for the thing. Like, here you go. Here's how you look up the county records. Here's, you know, here's where you look through it. You basically just compare these right here. This is the same thing they're gonna do. No, 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 it needs to be these guys. They're certified to do it. Okay. You go do your thing, and then, like, 6 weeks later they come back, oh, you know, I finished my search now. I was waiting for them to finish it all this time, and by that point the thing was already just sold to somebody else, because I'm not waiting 6 weeks to not even make a third of what I need to make for the month. But, oh well. I say oh well a lot. I guess that happens. Alright. This grind fight is almost done. Actually, this guy... yeah, seems like we're better off just tanking him. Drink. Less accurate, but a potential for stagger. Something else you might be noticing, pretty obviously here. Friggin', I'm just gonna call them fencers, because Spellblade just doesn't roll off the tongue as well for me. Yeah, fencers are way stronger at fighting now. Stronger at fighting, they've got their revive ability. Barricade was actually moved over to... well, actually, it wasn't exactly moved over, but it was just kept on Fusiliers. So he wanted to make it an exclusive for them. It sounds like it may be getting, like, a damage thing. Like, if somebody walks nearby it, they get damage kind of situation, which would be pretty cool. I don't know, I personally love seeing the barricades all over a map, but they're a little bit on the useless side. So, you know, it'll be cool to see. See what he does with that. Seems like every upgrade that he makes is something amazing. So props to you, man. I think you're making an amazing mod. By the way, if you're wondering about Denim doing piss poor damage against this guy, it's 2 things. First off, Denim is actually pretty much weaker across the board. He's more of an average guy now. And another thing, because of his low level, because of his weapon, and probably because this guy is a kind of medium weight class with more than likely some mail on him. Yeah. He's got mail, some evasive pants, and a shield. He's not actually able to get past his damage threshold. Now, when I say damage threshold, it's it's less overt than in a lot of other cases where you might see such a system. But for all intents and purposes, I think it's fair to call it a damage threshold. That's actually where you see stuff like Strengthen and Fortify coming in. But essentially, if a hit gets past whatever their needed, well, defensive threshold is, then they do a much higher amount of damage and everything else. So, for example, if somebody's using Strengthen, and they get past that threshold, then Strengthen increases the damage past it. If it's low damage, you could basically just see it as, you know, hitting the armor. If it's getting past the armor, then essentially that's the damage that it's actually boosting. And same thing for Fortify. If it's hitting them, you know, hitting their armor more or less, if it's being absorbed by that, it's not something that's going to be affected by Fortify, but if they're going to take more damage, Fortify reduces that higher damage. Something like that. Rakes had a whole, like, spreadsheet kind of thing put together, kind of explaining that whole situation, because it's a weird way of doing it, but I like to view it by New Vegas terms of, like, okay, there's just a certain amount of armor, he either gets past it or not. All damage threshold. So, you know, that's why I think this is pretty close to what I would call an ideal for the situation. At this point, I would say the only way to really perfect that kind of damage threshold system would be essentially if there weren't levels, like if the levels in question here didn't affect stats at all, and they were only, you know, say for equipment or whatever else. Personally, I would have preferred just not having any leveling system at all. But of course, then that would eliminate the need for lower equipment tiers and things like that. So that would, I mean, that wouldn't work in this case, is what I'm trying to say. But you know, if somebody were to make something like, you know, a game like this essentially without levels, that's the only way that a true damage threshold system would work properly. Oh, there's that. Also, fists and stuff like that actually do damage. It's like a miracle. Also, his skills actually go up. So yeah, we haven't gotten terribly far in the game. He's almost at rank 2. It's nice, you know? It's a very nice feeling when your skills actually progress. The feeling of progression, and really the kind of comforting knowledge that all the classes have a role to play to some degree, that, you know, the levels won't make too big of a difference, more how you use them. That's something that I really loved about FFTA 2. It's something that I feel is really in this mod a fair bit. Okay, so we got light shields, light spears, and heavy spears. I'm probably gonna end up just leaving him a little light spear. We'll see. And down the road, he can't use heavy armor. That's a little bit of a downside, but you know, evasive stuff is just fine. So chainmail, for example, counts as a heavy armor. I guess it would have depended, realistically, because you probably, you know, you could have had a light chain or, you know, a heavy chain kind of thing, or, you know, like a chain plate type of situation. Oh well. Moving on. More politics. Yep. Sure does. There's definitely not going to be any war crimes going on. Yeah, that's how that works. Yep. Honestly, if they just, took some time and freed them over time, then they would have eventually caused the stuff that they're trying to pretend happened with the false flag operation anyway. They probably would have been attacked, and at that point there probably would have been a revolt, and, at that point they would have accomplished what they wanted, but impatient. Bring an impatient Duke over here. They forgot to mention where a bunch of other people tried the same thing. Oh well. She says her sword is ours, she uses a spear. I know it's a manner of speaking, but oh well. More like her spirit surge is ours, her. That's all she does. Here's what I don't get. She doesn't know about the plan. He does. He's standing right there. Like, they're on either side of him. Like, she's looking over like, what are you talking about? But, he's been around the whole time. You'd think somebody would have mentioned something. Alright, anyway. I know that fight didn't involve a whole lot of new stuff happening, but basically just gonna gear up here real quick. Alright, so door upgrade happened. We're gonna need 2 sets of claws. I don't have anyone with daggers yet, right? Probably not. Another sword. The 1.5 upgrades are going away, thankfully. Oh, bad lags. So what, I think I mentioned that already. Basically he mentioned that they're going to be essentially making way for side grades, which is nice. Like, base game tried to do side grades, but didn't understand what side grade meant. Ooh, spiked flail. Can I use a Jite yet? Not quite. Wait, are any new classes unlocked? No. Right. I have to give him a better spear. You get them things. No, you don't, because you're not leveled up yet. You can't use that axe. Data smart. No one can use their weapons. Right. This is when it helps to think stuff through. Turns out. Alright, I'm gonna go Fist and Shield on her too. Largely because then they can spread around counter poison, and that's very useful. Yes. Beast good. Just it good. Alright, Augment Light. Pop that sucker on there, and we're temporarily getting rid of Anatomy for that. Nothing he can counter. That's useful. I may do one more grind fight just to let them use their equipment. Yeah, because he's one off from subduing anything, which is kind of what I want to be able to do. Any dang ways. That'll be next time, though, so see you then.